My boyfriend cheated on me with my best friend. And that night I walked aimlessly through the streets until I found myself standing outside a neighborhood bar I had never entered before. I sat at the counter, ordered something I don't even remember now. And an older man with deep, penetrating eyes and a calm voice took the seat next to mine. He looked straight at me and said, "Whoever made you cry doesn't deserve another second of your tears." We talked until they closed the place. He was attentive, knew how to listen, and something about him made me feel protected. When we said goodbye, he took my hand and whispered, "I won't let anyone hurt you again." I thought it was just a sweet gesture, one of those phrases people say and forget. 7 days later, my ex showed up at my door trembling, his face pale and his eyes wide with terror, begging me to please stop my boyfriend, to leave him alone. I didn't understand anything. I didn't have a boyfriend. Then I searched online for the name that man had given me that night at the bar, and what I found froze my blood. But before I continue, I want to know something. Tell me in the comments, where in the world you're listening to me right now, and how old you are. I love knowing who's on the other side, who's sharing with me this story that changed my life forever. Now yes, let me tell you everything from the beginning, with every detail, every word, every silence that broke my soul. It was a Tuesday, August 13th, to be exact. One of those gray days where the sky seems to press down on your chest, where the air feels thick and hard to breathe. I remember because that morning, I had woken up with a strange feeling, as if my body knew something my mind refused to accept. The sheets were cold next to me. Daniel had left early, or so his text message said. Had to go to the office early, babe. Love you. 3 words that now, looking back, tasted like lies wrapped in routine. I got up slowly, my bare feet touching the wooden floor that creaked under my weight. The apartment was silent. That silence that isn't peaceful but heavy, oppressive. The kind that makes you aware of your own breathing, your own heartbeat. I walked to the small kitchen and put water on to boil. My hands moved automatically, reaching for the coffee, the sugar, the chipped mug Daniel had given me 2 Christmases ago. "For the woman who makes every morning better," it read on the side. I stared at those words for a long time, feeling something twist inside my chest. The coffee was bitter that morning. More bitter than usual. Or maybe it was just me. Maybe everything tasted different because somewhere deep inside, in that place where women's intuition lives, I already knew. I already knew what I would discover in just a few hours. I remember sitting at the small table by the window, watching the neighbors across the street. Mrs. Rodriguez was watering her plants, the same plants she had watered every Tuesday morning for the 5 years I had lived in that building. Everything seemed so normal, so routine, so unbearably ordinary. How could the world keep turning when mine was about to shatter into 1,000 pieces? My phone buzzed. A message from Carla, my best friend since we were 15 years old. 15 years of shared secrets, of crying on each other's shoulders, of promises that we would always be there for each other no matter what. "Can we talk? It's important." 6 words that made my stomach drop. There was something in the way she wrote them, something formal, something that didn't sound like her. I texted back immediately. "Of course, what's wrong? Are you okay?" The 3 little dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. She was writing, deleting, writing again. My heart started racing. When someone hesitates like that, it's never good news. Never. Finally, her message came through. "Not over text. Can I come over? I need to see you." 20 minutes later, she was at my door. I remember opening it and seeing her face, really seeing it, and knowing in that instant that my life was about to change. Her eyes were red and swollen, her mascara smudged in black streaks down her cheeks. She had been crying. Carla never cried. Not at sad movies, not at funerals, not when her father had died 3 years ago. She had held everything inside that day, standing strong for her mother, for her younger sister. But now, standing in my doorway on that gray Tuesday in August, she was falling apart. "Come in," I whispered, even though something in me wanted to close the door, wanted to keep whatever truth she carried outside, away from my small sanctuary of denial. She walked past me slowly, her steps heavy, as if each one cost her enormous effort. She sat on the old couch Daniel and I had bought at a thrift store when we first moved in together 3 years ago. That couch had seen so many happy moments. Movie nights with blankets and popcorn, Sunday mornings with coffee and newspapers. Conversations about our future, about the house we would buy someday, about the children we would have, their names already chosen. Lucas if it was a boy, Emma if it was a girl. All of that felt so far away now, like a dream someone else had dreamed. Carla looked at her hands, twisted them together in her lap. Her fingernails were painted red, that bright red she always wore. I don't know how to say this, she began, her voice barely audible. I've been trying to find the words for days, for weeks maybe, and there's just no easy way. Then just say it, I heard myself respond. My voice sounding strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. Whatever it is, just tell me. She looked up at me then, and I saw something in her eyes I had never seen before. Shame, deep, crushing shame, and guilt. So much guilt, it seemed to pour out of her like a physical thing. I've been sleeping with Daniel. 4 words. Just 4 simple words. But they detonated inside me like a bomb, tearing through everything I thought I knew, everything I believed, everything I had built my life around. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Literally couldn't breathe. My lungs refused to work. My chest felt crushed. My vision blurred at the edges. What? The word came out as a whisper, barely a sound. I'm so sorry, she sobbed, covering her face with her hands. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen. It just did, and then I couldn't stop, and I know there's no excuse. I know I'm the worst person in the world. I know you'll never forgive me, but I couldn't keep lying to you. I couldn't keep looking at you every day knowing what I was doing, knowing what we were doing. The words kept coming, tumbling out of her in a rush, but I couldn't process them. My brain had shut down. My body had shut down. I was sitting there on the chair across from her, but I wasn't really there. I was somewhere else, somewhere dark and cold and empty. How long? I finally managed to ask. My voice sounded calm, too calm, like the eerie quiet before a storm. She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. 6 months. 6 months, half a year. While I had been planning our future, shopping for furniture, looking at engagement rings online when I thought he wasn't watching. While I had been calling her every night to talk about my day, about how lucky I was to have Daniel, about how he was the one. While she had smiled and agreed, and told me how happy she was for me. Where? I asked. Each question felt like pulling a knife from my own chest. But I needed to know. I needed to understand the full scope of the betrayal. Different places, she whispered. Hotels mostly, sometimes his office. Once at my apartment. Her apartment. Where I had spent countless evenings. Where I had slept on her couch when I had fights with Daniel and needed space. Where we had shared bottles of wine and talked about life and love and friendship. He had been there in her bed, while I sat in her living room, trusting them both completely. Does he know you're telling me? No, she looked terrified suddenly. He's going to be so angry. He told me we could never tell you, that it would destroy you, that it was better to just end things quietly and you'd never have to know. How noble of him, I said, and the sarcasm in my voice surprised even me. Planning my future, making decisions about what I should and shouldn't know. Tell me, Carla, were you going to be my maid of honor? When he finally proposed, were you going to stand next to me at the altar, wearing a beautiful dress, smiling for the photos, knowing you had been fucking him the whole time? She flinched at the word. Good. I wanted her to flinch. I wanted her to hurt even a fraction of how much I was hurting. I'm ending it, she said quickly. I already told him yesterday. That's why I'm here. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep being that person. My mother raised me better than this. She raised me to be honest, to be loyal, to be a good friend, and I've been none of those things. You're right, I said, standing up. My legs felt shaky, but I forced them to hold me. You haven't been, and now I need you to leave. Please, she begged, reaching for my hand. Please, can we talk about this? Can we work through this? You're my best friend, you're my sister, I can't lose you. I pulled my hand away as if her touch burned. You lost me the first time you kissed him. The first time you made the choice to betray me. You lost me 6 months ago, Carla. You just didn't bother to tell me until now. She stood up, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. I understand. I understand if you never want to see me again. But please, please know that I loved you through all of this. I still love you. And I hate myself more than you could ever hate me. I doubt that, I said quietly, walking to the door and opening it. Goodbye, Carla. She walked out slowly, pausing at the threshold, as if hoping I would call her back, tell her it was okay, that we could fix this. But I didn't. I closed the door behind her and stood there in the silence of my apartment, in the ruins of my life, and felt absolutely nothing. The numbness lasted for about an hour. I sat back down on the couch, in the same spot where Carla had confessed, and stared at the wall. The clock ticked loudly. Someone in the apartment above was walking around, their footsteps heavy on the floor. A dog barked in the distance. Normal sounds. Life continuing as if nothing had happened. Then the numbness cracked, and underneath it was rage. Pure, burning, all-consuming rage. I grabbed my phone and called Daniel. He answered on the third ring, his voice cheerful and unsuspecting. Hey babe, what's up? I'm in a meeting but I can talk for a minute. I know about Carla, I said, my voice ice cold. Silence, complete and total silence. I could hear him breathing, could hear the panic in that breath. What? He finally said, but his voice had changed. The cheerfulness was gone, now he sounded wary, defensive. What are you talking about? Don't. I said sharply. Don't you dare insult me by pretending you don't know. She told me everything. 6 months, Daniel. 6 months you've been lying to my face, sleeping in my bed, telling me you love me while you were with her. It's not. He started then stopped. I could hear him moving, probably leaving wherever he was, looking for privacy. It's not what you think. It was a mistake. A stupid mistake. She came on to me and I was weak, and it just happened. 6 months isn't a mistake, I said, my voice rising. 6 months is a choice. A choice you made over and over and over again. Every time you kissed her, every time you touched her, every time you lied to me, that was a choice. Please, he said, and now he sounded desperate. Please, let me come home. Let me explain. We can work through this. I love you. I've always loved you. She meant nothing. She was just there and I was stupid, but it's you I want. It's always been you. Don't come home, I said. Don't ever come home. Your things will be outside the door tomorrow. If you try to contact me, if you try to see me, I will call the police. Do you understand? Baby, please. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break things. I wanted to hurt them the way they had hurt me. But instead I just sat there, feeling the tears finally come, hot and angry and endless. I cried for hours. I cried until my eyes were swollen shut, until my throat was raw, until there were no more tears left. Then I got up, washed my face with cold water, looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, my skin blotchy and red, my hair a mess. I looked like someone who had just had their heart ripped out, because I had. I needed to get out, needed to leave the apartment that suddenly felt suffocating, full of memories that were now poisoned. I grabbed my jacket, my wallet, my keys, and walked out into the street. It was evening now. The gray sky had darkened to a deep blue-black, the streetlights flickering on one by one. People were coming home from work, tired faces, heavy steps, everyone wrapped in their own worlds. I walked without direction, without purpose, just walked to keep moving, to keep from thinking. I don't know how long I walked. Maybe an hour, maybe 2. Time had lost all meaning. Eventually I found myself standing in front of a bar I had passed 1,000 times but never entered. It was called the Lighthouse, a small place with a faded sign and dim lights in the windows. It looked quiet, safe, exactly what I needed. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The air was warm and smelled of old wood and beer and something else. Something comforting I couldn't quite name. The bar was nearly empty. An older woman sat in the corner, nursing a glass of red wine and reading a book. 2 men in work clothes talked quietly at a table near the back, and the bartender, a young guy with kind eyes, looked up as I entered and nodded. I sat at the bar, perched on one of the worn leather stools. Whiskey, I said. Whatever you have, make it a double. He poured without comment, sliding the glass across to me. I drank it fast, too fast, feeling it burn down my throat and settle warm in my stomach. It helped. Not much, but a little. Another? The bartender asked. I nodded. He poured again, then moved away to give me space. I appreciated that. I didn't want to talk. Didn't want sympathy. Didn't want anything except to sit here in this quiet bar and try to forget, even if just for an hour, what my life had become. I was halfway through my second drink when someone sat down on the stool next to mine. I didn't look up, didn't acknowledge them. I just wanted to be left alone. Rough day? A voice asked. Male, older with a slight rasp to it, like he had spent years smoking or talking too much or both. You could say that, I replied without looking at him, hoping he would take the hint and leave me alone. He didn't. Instead, he signaled the bartender and ordered something I didn't catch. Then he turned slightly toward me, though I still kept my eyes on my glass. I've seen that look before, he said quietly. That particular kind of devastation. Someone broke your heart. I finally looked at him then, ready to tell him to mind his own business. But the words died in my throat. He was older than I had expected, maybe late 50s, or early 60s, with silver hair combed back from a strong face. Deep lines around his eyes and mouth that spoke of a life fully lived. He wore a simple black shirt and dark jeans, nothing fancy, but something about him commanded attention. His eyes were the most striking thing about him, pale gray like storm clouds, and they looked at me with such genuine concern that I felt my defenses crack slightly. Is it that obvious? I asked, attempting a smile that failed miserably. Only to someone who's been there, he said. He held out his hand. Victor Castellanos. I shook his hand. His grip was firm but gentle. Laura, I said. Laura Bennett. Well, Laura Bennett, he said, picking up the drink the bartender had placed in front of him. Whoever hurt you is a fool. I can see that just by looking at you for 30 seconds. A complete and utter fool. Something about the way he said it, so matter of fact, so certain, made something inside me loosen. Thank you, I whispered. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that right now. Do you want to talk about it? He asked. Sometimes it helps to tell the story to a stranger. Someone with no stake in your life, no opinions, no judgments, just ears and attention. I looked at him for a long moment, weighing it. What did I have to lose? I would probably never see this man again. And God, I needed to talk to someone who wasn't part of my life, who wouldn't tell me to forgive or forget or try to work things out. My boyfriend, I began, the words catching in my throat. My boyfriend of 3 years has been cheating on me, with my best friend, for 6 months, she told me today. Just showed up at my door and unloaded the whole thing like a confession, like telling me would somehow make it better, would somehow absolve her. Victor listened without interrupting, his eyes never leaving my face. He sipped his drink slowly, patiently, giving me space to continue. 6 months, I repeated, the number still incomprehensible. I was planning our future. I thought he was going to propose. I was looking at venues for a possible wedding, and all that time both of them were lying to my face. Both of them were making a fool of me. You're not the fool, Victor said softly. Trusting someone isn't foolish. Loving someone isn't foolish. What they did, that's on them. Their choices, their betrayal, not your fault. But I should have known, I said, feeling the tears threaten again. There must have been signs, things I missed, ways I failed him that made him look elsewhere. Stop, Victor said firmly, but not unkindly. Don't do that to yourself. Don't take responsibility for someone else's failure of character. He made a choice. She made a choice. You did nothing wrong except trust the wrong people. We talked for hours after that. Victor shared some of his own story, though he was vague on the details. He had been married once long ago. She had left him for another man. He understood heartbreak. He understood betrayal. He understood that particular kind of pain that comes from losing not just a lover but a future you had already built in your mind. He was easy to talk to. He asked good questions, made me laugh a few times, despite everything, and most importantly, he really listened. Not the kind of listening where someone is just waiting for their turn to talk, but genuine listening. He heard not just my words but the pain behind them. The bartender announced last call, and I was shocked to realize we had been talking for nearly 4 hours. The bar was completely empty now except for us. Time had disappeared, lost in conversation and shared understanding. I should go, I said reluctantly. Not really wanting to leave this bubble of safety and understanding, but knowing I couldn't stay here forever. Let me walk you home, Victor offered. It's late, a woman shouldn't walk alone at this hour. I hesitated. I didn't know this man, but something about him made me feel safe. Safer than I had felt in my own home. Okay, I agreed. We walked slowly through the quiet streets. The night air was cool, refreshing after the warmth of the bar. Victor kept a respectful distance, his hands in his pockets, his presence comforting without being intrusive. Thank you, I said as we neared my building. For tonight, for listening, for being kind when I really needed kindness. It was my pleasure, he said sincerely. Sometimes we cross paths with people exactly when we need to. I think tonight was one of those times. We stopped in front of my building. I turned to him, this stranger who had become something like a friend in just a few hours. I hope you have a good night, Victor. He looked at me for a long moment, those storm-gray eyes intense and unreadable. Then he reached out and took my hand, held it gently. Laura, he said, his voice low and serious. I want you to know something. What happened to you tonight, what those people did to you, it was wrong, deeply wrong, and I promise you this, I won't let anyone hurt you like that again. I smiled sadly. That's sweet of you to say, but I don't think that's something you can control. You'd be surprised, he said. And there was something in his voice, something dark and promising and a little bit frightening, that made me shiver. But not from fear, from something else, something I couldn't quite name. He released my hand, stepped back. Good night, Laura, take care of yourself. Good night, Victor. I watched him walk away, his figure gradually disappearing into the shadows of the night. Then I went inside, climbed the stairs to my apartment, and fell into bed fully clothed, too exhausted to even cry anymore. The next few days passed in a blur of pain and practicality. I called my landlord and changed the locks on Wednesday. I packed up all of Daniel's things, every shirt, every book, every photograph, and left them in boxes outside the apartment door like I had promised. He came to get them while I was at work. I knew because they were gone when I came home, and he had left a letter. I didn't read it. I tore it up without opening it, and threw it in the trash. I didn't want his excuses or his apologies or his explanations. I wanted nothing from him except distance. Carla tried to contact me multiple times. Phone calls I didn't answer. Text messages I deleted without reading. She even showed up at my work on Thursday. But I told the receptionist I wasn't available and had security escort her out. I had nothing to say to her. Nothing she could say would undo what she had done. The nights were the hardest. During the day I could distract myself with work, with errands, with the mundane tasks of living. But at night, alone in the apartment that suddenly felt too big and too empty, the thoughts came. The images, them together. Laughing, touching, while I had been at home, trusting, loving, completely oblivious. By Friday I felt like I was losing my mind. The apartment walls were closing in on me. I needed to get out, needed air, needed to be anywhere but here. So I went back to the lighthouse. It felt like coming home. The same warm air, the same smell, the same bartender who nodded at me in recognition. I sat in the same stool I had occupied on Tuesday, and without asking the bartender poured me a whiskey, double. I had been there for maybe 20 minutes when the door opened, and Victor walked in. He saw me immediately, a smile lighting up his face. Laura, he said, making his way over. I was hoping I might see you here. Were you? I asked, genuinely pleased to see him. In just a few hours of conversation, this stranger had become someone I trusted, someone whose presence brought comfort. I was, he confirmed, sitting down next to me in the same stool he had occupied before. I've been thinking about you, wondering how you were doing. Surviving, I said honestly, taking it one day at a time. I changed the locks, packed up his things, cut out everyone who betrayed me, and now I'm trying to figure out who I am without them. You're you, Victor said simply. You're Laura Bennett. You're strong, you're kind, you're worthy of real love and real loyalty, and you're going to be okay. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. We fell into easy conversation again. He told me more about himself this time. He had grown up in a rough neighborhood, the kind where you learned young that the world wasn't fair and people weren't always good. He had made some money over the years through various businesses he was vague about. He lived alone now, had for years in a house on the edge of town. He had no children, no close family, just himself and whatever life brought him day by day. Don't you get lonely? I asked. Sometimes, he admitted. But loneliness is better than being with the wrong people. I learned that the hard way. When my wife left, I thought I would die from the pain. But I didn't. I survived. And eventually I realized I was happier alone than I had been trying to hold on to something that was already dead. His words resonated with something deep inside me. I keep thinking I should have fought harder. I confessed. Should have asked more questions, paid more attention, been a better girlfriend. Stop, he said again, just as firmly as he had on Tuesday. The only people who should be questioning themselves are the ones who lied and cheated, not you. We stayed until last call again. This time when we walked out into the night, Victor offered to drive me home. I accepted, grateful not to have to walk. His car was an older model Mercedes, well maintained but not flashy. The interior smelled like leather and something else, something masculine and clean. We didn't talk much during the drive. Comfortable silence. When we pulled up in front of my building, I turned to him. Victor, can I ask you something? Anything. Why are you being so kind to me? You don't know me. You owe me nothing. So why? He was quiet for a moment, his hands still on the steering wheel, his eyes looking out at the dark street. Because I see myself in you, he finally said. I remember what it's like to have your world shattered by people you trusted. I remember how desperately I needed someone to tell me it wasn't my fault, that I would survive, that there was life after betrayal. No one told me those things. I figured it out alone, in the dark over years that felt like decades. So when I see someone going through that same pain, I want to be the person I needed back then. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense, I whispered, feeling tears prick my eyes at his honesty. Thank you, Victor, for everything. He turned to look at me then, and in the dim light from the street lamp, his face looked younger somehow, softer. You're going to be okay, Laura. I promise you that, and I keep my promises. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. I got out of the car, gave him a small wave and walked into my building. I heard him drive away only after I had safely entered the lobby. The weekend passed quietly. I cleaned the apartment from top to bottom, scrubbing away every trace of Daniel. I donated his favorite coffee mug. I washed all the sheets. I rearranged the furniture. I was trying to reclaim my space, make it mine again instead of ours. On Sunday evening I was sitting on the couch with a cup of tea, watching some mindless television show, when my phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Heavy breathing on the other end. Labored. Frightened. Laura? Daniel's voice, but strained, panicked in a way I had never heard before. Daniel, what do you want? I told you not to contact me. Please, he gasped out. Please, you have to help me. You have to call him off. Please. Call who off? What are you talking about? Your boyfriend, he said, his voice rising to something close to hysteria. The guy you're seeing, tell him to stop. Tell him to leave me alone. Please, Laura, I'm begging you. Daniel, I don't have a boyfriend. What are you talking about? The guy from the bar, he insisted. The older guy, Victor something. He's been following me. He knows where I live. He knows where I work. He shows up everywhere, and he looks at me like he wants to kill me. Please, Laura, I know you're angry. I know you have every right to be, but please, this is too much. This is insane. My blood ran cold. Victor. He was talking about Victor. Daniel, I met Victor once at a bar. We talked, that's it. He's not my boyfriend. I have no idea what you're talking about. He told me, Daniel said, his voice breaking. He told me he knows what I did. He told me that no one hurts you and gets away with it. He told me that I need to watch my back, that I should be very, very careful because he's watching. Laura, I'm scared. I'm really scared. I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what he was telling me. Victor had seemed so kind, so understanding. But something in Daniel's voice, the genuine terror, made me pause. I'll talk to him, I said finally. I'll tell him to leave you alone. But Daniel, after this, don't call me again. Ever. Do you understand? Yes. He breathed out, relief flooding his voice. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone, staring at it like it might explain what had just happened. Victor had been following Daniel? Threatening him? That didn't sound like the gentle, understanding man I had met. But then again, I really didn't know him, did I? We had talked twice, for a few hours each time. I didn't actually know anything about him beyond what he had chosen to tell me. I realized I didn't even have his phone number. How was I supposed to contact him? The only place I knew where to find him was the lighthouse. So on Monday evening after work, I went back to the bar. He wasn't there. I asked the bartender, who told me Victor came in most nights, but not always. He suggested I leave a message or my number. I did, asking Victor to call me. It was important. 2 days passed with no word from him. I started to relax, thinking maybe Daniel had been mistaken, had been paranoid. Maybe it was someone else, or maybe nothing at all. Daniel had always been a bit dramatic when he was stressed. Then, on Wednesday evening, as I was making dinner in my kitchen, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Victor standing there, looking the same as always, calm, composed. Slightly concerned. I opened the door. Victor, I've been trying to reach you. I got your message, he said. Can I come in? I hesitated for just a moment, then stepped aside. He walked into my apartment, looking around with interest, taking in the space. Nice place, he commented. Victor, I need to ask you something and I need you to be honest with me. Of course. I've never lied to you, Laura. Have you been following my ex-boyfriend? Have you been threatening him? His expression didn't change. He didn't look surprised or offended or defensive. He just looked at me with those calm gray eyes and said, yes. The simple admission stunned me. Why? I didn't ask you to do that. I don't want you to do that. I know you didn't ask, he said, moving to sit on my couch, making himself comfortable. But I told you I wouldn't let anyone hurt you again. I meant it. Victor, that's not your responsibility. What Daniel did was horrible. But it's over. I've moved on. I don't need you to. To what? Scare him. Hurt him. I haven't hurt him, Victor said calmly. Yet, I've simply made it clear that his actions have consequences. That he can't just betray someone, destroy them and walk away without any repercussions. But that's not how the world works. I protested, feeling fear starting to creep in. You can't just harass people, because they hurt someone you barely know. Can't I? He asked, and there was something in his voice now, something hard and cold that I hadn't heard before. Laura, you're a good person, a kind person. You believe in fairness and justice, and that people get what they deserve. But the world doesn't work that way. The world rewards the cruel and punishes the kind. The world lets people like your ex and your former friend get away with destroying others and facing no consequences. I don't accept that. I never have. Victor, you're scaring me, I said honestly. He stood up immediately, his face softening. I'm sorry, that's the last thing I want to do. I would never scare you. I would never hurt you. You have to believe that. Then stop whatever you're doing with Daniel. Please, just let it go. Let me move on with my life. He looked at me for a long moment. If that's what you truly want, then I will. I'll leave him alone. You have my word. That's what I want, I confirmed, relief washing through me. Then it's done, he said. He walked to the door, then paused. But Laura, I want you to know something. When someone hurts you, they should face consequences. Real consequences. The fact that they usually don't, that people get away with causing pain and suffering and betrayal with nothing more than a guilty conscience, if that, it's not right, it's not justice. Maybe not, I agreed. But it's not our place to deliver justice, Victor. That's not how this works. He smiled sadly. You're probably right. Good night, Laura. I hope you find the peace you deserve. He left. I locked the door behind him and leaned against it, my heart pounding. What had I gotten myself into? Who was Victor Castellanos really? I decided I needed to know. That night, sitting at my laptop, I typed his name into the search engine. Victor Castellanos. The results that came up made my blood run cold. Victor Castellanos, former enforcer for the Moretti crime family, suspected in multiple disappearances and murders, though never charged due to lack of evidence. Known for his particular code of honor, his loyalty to those he considered under his protection, and his brutal efficiency in eliminating threats. Retired from active criminal life 15 years ago after a falling out with the family, but his reputation remained. In the criminal underworld, his name was whispered with respect and fear. If Victor Castellanos decided you needed to be dealt with, you were dealt with, permanently. I stared at the screen, at the grainy photos of a younger Victor being led into a police station, at the articles detailing crimes he was suspected of but never proven to have committed. This was the man I had shared my pain with. This was the man I had trusted. This was the man who had promised to protect me. This was the man who now knew everything about my life. I felt panic rising in my chest. What had I done? What had I unleashed? My phone rang. Daniel again. I answered with shaking hands. Laura, thank God. He's here. He's outside my apartment right now. I can see him from my window. Please, you said you'd talk to him. Please make him stop. I did talk to him, I said, my voice barely steady. He said he would leave you alone, he promised. Well, he lied, Daniel said, his voice breaking with fear. Because he's standing right there and he's looking up at my window, and Laura, I think he's going to kill me. I really think he's going to kill me. Call the police, I said frantically. Call them right now. And tell them what? That a man is standing on a public street. They won't do anything. You know they won't do anything. Please, Laura, I know I hurt you. I know I'm a terrible person, but please don't let him kill me. Please. I hung up and immediately called Victor's number that he had left with the bartender. It rang and went to voicemail. I called again, same result. I sent a text, Victor, please, leave Daniel alone. You promised, please. No response. I didn't know what to do. I paced my apartment, my mind racing. Should I call the police, and tell them what? That the man I had befriended at a bar, who had shown me nothing but kindness, who I had discovered was a retired criminal, was potentially threatening my ex. What proof did I have? What evidence? It would sound insane. Hours passed. My phone rang twice more, both times Daniel, both times more panicked, more terrified. Victor was still there, just standing, just watching, and somehow that was more terrifying than if he had actually done something. At midnight, Daniel called one final time. He's gone, he gasped. He just left, just walked away. But Laura, he left a note, under my door. It says, this is your only warning. Hurt her again in any way, even with words, and I won't be so merciful. Laura, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do? Stay away from me, I said firmly. That's what it means. Don't contact me. Don't come near me. Don't think about me. Just disappear from my life completely. I will, he promised desperately. I swear I will. I'm going to move. I'm going to leave town. I can't live like this, looking over my shoulder, waiting for him to decide I haven't suffered enough. Then go, I said. Go and don't look back. I hung up and sat in the darkness of my living room, trying to process everything that had happened. Victor had lied to me. He had promised to leave Daniel alone, and then he had gone right back to terrorizing him. Because in his mind, justice hadn't been served. The scales hadn't been balanced. Part of me, a dark part I didn't want to acknowledge, felt satisfied. Daniel was scared. Daniel was suffering. Daniel was facing consequences for what he had done. Wasn't that what I had wanted? Deep down, in those moments of rage and pain, hadn't I wanted him to hurt the way he had hurt me? But this was wrong. This was dangerous. This was out of control. The next day, I went to the lighthouse at opening time. Victor was there, sitting at the bar, nursing a coffee. He saw me and smiled, but I didn't smile back. We need to talk, I said. Of course. He gestured to the stool next to him. I sat, but kept distance between us. You lied to me, I said directly. You promised you would leave Daniel alone, and then you went right back to threatening him. I didn't lie, Victor said calmly. I left him alone. I didn't touch him. I didn't hurt him. I simply reminded him that his actions have consequences. That's semantics, Victor. You know what I meant. Do I? He turned to face me fully. Laura, did you know that Daniel has been telling people you're crazy? That you're stalking him? That you're making up lies about him and your friend to get revenge for some imagined slight? He's been destroying your reputation while you've been trying to heal and move on. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What? I followed him to learn about him, to understand who had hurt you, Victor continued. And what I found was a coward who not only betrayed you but is now trying to make you look like the villain in this story. He's telling mutual friends that you're obsessed with him, that you won't let him move on, that you're dangerous. Does that sound like someone who deserves mercy? I couldn't speak. The thought of Daniel out there, twisting the narrative, making me the bad guy when he was the one who had cheated, who had lied, it made me sick, it made me furious. He deserves to be scared, Victor said quietly. He deserves to know what it feels like to be powerless, to be at someone else's mercy. He deserves a fraction of the pain he caused you. But that's not your decision to make. I said though, my conviction was wavering. That's not your justice to deliver. Then whose is it? Victor asked. The court system that would dismiss this as a personal matter, society that shrugs and says relationships end, people cheat, that's life. Who delivers justice for women like you, Laura? Who makes sure that men like Daniel understand that you can't just destroy someone without facing any consequences? I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, but I couldn't find the words because part of me, a part that was growing louder, agreed with him. What did you do before? I asked instead. Before you retired, what exactly did you do? He studied me carefully, weighing how much to tell me. I protected people, he finally said. People who couldn't protect themselves. People who were being victimized by those with more power, more resources, more connections. I made sure the scales balanced. I made sure that predators faced prey that could bite back. You killed people, I said bluntly. Sometimes, he admitted without flinching. When there was no other way, when they were too dangerous to be left alive. When the system failed and someone needed to step in. Yes, sometimes, I killed people. Bad people. People who hurt others and would continue to hurt others if they weren't stopped. And you think Daniel is one of those people? No, Victor said. Daniel is just a weak, selfish man who will hurt anyone who loves him because he doesn't understand what love means. He's not worth killing, he's just worth scaring, worth reminding that the world is bigger than him and his desires. We sat in silence for a few moments. The bartender refilled Victor's coffee, gave me a questioning look. I shook my head. I didn't want anything. I need time. I finally said. Time to think about all of this. Time to figure out what I'm comfortable with and what I'm not. Take all the time you need, Victor said gently. But know this, Laura. I'm not going away. I've adopted you. That's what I do when I meet someone who deserves better than what life has given them. I adopt them. I become their guardian, their protector, whether they ask for it or not. That's not normal, Victor, I said softly. I've never claimed to be normal, he replied, with a slight smile. But I am loyal, I am honest, and I am effective. Those are qualities that seem to be in short supply these days. I left the bar feeling more confused than ever. Over the next few days I tried to go back to normal life. Tried to focus on work, on rebuilding my routine, on moving forward. But Victor's presence loomed in my thoughts. What he had said, what he had done, what he represented. And then Carla called. Not texted, not messaged, actually called. I answered without thinking. Laura, please don't hang up, she said quickly. I know you don't want to talk to me. I know I have no right to ask you for anything. But I need to warn you about something. Warn me about what? There's a man, she said, her voice tight with fear. An older man. He came to see me at my work. He knew everything, about Daniel and me. About what we did. He showed me pictures of myself. Pictures from places I go regularly. My gym, my favorite coffee shop, my mother's house. He knows where I live, where I work, where my family lives. And he told me that if I ever came near you again, if I ever tried to contact you again, he would make sure I regretted it. Laura, who is this man? My mouth went dry. What did he look like? Older, silver hair, gray eyes, very calm, very polite. But Laura, there was something in the way he looked at me. Something cold. Something that made me believe every word he said. Victor. Of course it was Victor. He's someone I met, I said carefully. He was trying to help me. Help you? Carla's voice rose. Laura, this man is dangerous, I could feel it. Whatever he is, whoever he is, he's not a good person. You need to stay away from him. You need to call the police. And tell them what? Carla. The same thing I would tell them about Daniel's complaints. That a man talked to you, that he made you uncomfortable. They won't do anything. Then what am I supposed to do? She asked, desperation bleeding into her voice. The same thing he told you to do. I said coldly, stay away from me, never contact me again, disappear from my life completely. Laura, I hung up, my hands were shaking. This was escalating. Victor wasn't just going after Daniel anymore. He was going after everyone who had hurt me. He was creating a perimeter of fear around me, making sure no one who had wronged me would ever dare to come near again. Part of me was terrified. Part of me was appalled. And part of me, God help me, felt protected, valued, like someone was finally standing up for me in a world that usually told women to forgive and forget and move on. I called Victor. He answered on the first ring. Laura. You went to see Carla. I did. I didn't ask you to do that. I know. Victor, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep terrorizing people in my life. Can't I? He sounded genuinely curious. Tell me, Laura, do you feel safer knowing they're scared of coming near you? Do you sleep better at night knowing they understand there are consequences for what they did? I wanted to say no. Wanted to tell him that I was horrified, that this wasn't what I wanted. But I couldn't lie to him. I couldn't even lie to myself. Yes, I whispered. I do feel safer, and I hate that I feel that way. Don't hate it, he said gently. It's natural, it's human. Women are told to be forgiving, to be understanding, to be the bigger person. But sometimes, Laura, sometimes people need to face real consequences for their actions. Sometimes people need to be afraid. But what if you go too far? I asked. What if you actually hurt someone? I won't, he promised. Not unless they give me no choice. Not unless they prove they're a continued threat. Right now they're just scared, and scared people tend to be very careful about their actions. This can't continue. I said, though I wasn't sure I meant it. Eventually someone will go to the police. Eventually this will blow back on both of us. Let me worry about that. Victor said. You just focus on healing, on rebuilding your life, on becoming the person you want to be without the weight of betrayal holding you down. Let me handle the rest. We ended the call, and I sat in my apartment, staring at nothing, trying to figure out who I was becoming. A month ago, I would have been horrified by all of this. A month ago, I believed in forgiveness, and moving on and being the bigger person. But that was before betrayal had ripped my life apart. Before I had learned that sometimes kindness is seen as weakness. That sometimes forgiving people just gives them permission to hurt you again. Maybe Victor was right. Maybe some people needed to face consequences. Real consequences. The kind that couldn't be talked away or forgiven or forgotten. The weeks that followed were strange. I didn't see Victor much, but I felt his presence. Daniel moved away, just like he said he would. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that he had taken a job in another state, left without telling anyone, just disappeared one night. Carla quit her job and moved back in with her mother. She deleted all her social media, she became a ghost. And I continued with my life. Went to work, made new friends, started therapy to deal with the trust issues, and the anger and the pain, began to build something new from the ashes of what had burned down. Every few weeks, Victor would appear. Sometimes at the lighthouse, sometimes just outside my building, waiting to walk me home. Sometimes just a phone call to check in. He never demanded anything, never expected anything. He was just there, a constant presence, a guardian I hadn't asked for but had come to depend on. Are you ever going to tell me what you actually want from me? I asked him one night as we shared a drink at the bar. Why you've appointed yourself my protector. What you're getting out of all this. He smiled, That sad, knowing smile I had come to recognize. What I want, Laura, is to do for you what no one did for me. When my wife left, when she destroyed me, I was alone. I had no one to tell me it would be okay. No one to make sure she faced any consequences for her cruelty. I suffered alone, and it nearly destroyed me. So when I see someone suffering the way I suffered, I want to be the person I needed. That's what I get out of this. The chance to be someone's guardian angel. The chance to make sure that goodness and kindness aren't punished while cruelty goes rewarded. You're a complicated man, Victor Castellanos, I said softly. I'm a simple man, he corrected. I just have complicated methods. Months passed, 6, 7, 8, life normalized. The pain faded to a dull ache, then to a memory. I could think about Daniel and Carla without feeling like my chest was being crushed. I could imagine trusting someone again. I could see a future that didn't include them and didn't need them. And through it all, Victor was there. Not intrusive, not possessive, just there. A phone call when I was having a bad day. A cup of coffee left on my doorstep on rough mornings. A text message reminding me I was stronger than I thought. I started to care for him. Not romantically, nothing like that. But deeply. The way you care for someone who has seen you at your worst and stayed anyway. Who has protected you without asking for anything in return. Who has become part of your life so gradually that you can't remember what it was like without them. One evening, almost 9 months after that first night at the lighthouse, Victor called me. His voice sounded different. Tired. Older somehow. Laura, I need to see you. Of course, what's wrong? I'll explain when I see you. Can you meet me at the bar? I was there within 30 minutes. Victor was sitting in our usual spot, but something was off. He looked pale, drawn. His hands, usually so steady, trembled slightly as he lifted his glass. Victor, what's wrong? Are you sick? He smiled weakly. In a manner of speaking, Laura, I have lung cancer. Stage 4. The doctors give me maybe 3 months. The world tilted. What? No, that can't be right. You're fine. You've been fine. I've been dying, he said gently. For months now, since before I met you actually. I just didn't tell you because I didn't want you to worry, didn't want you to feel obligated to care for a dying man. Tears spilled down my cheeks before I could stop them. Victor, I need to take you to a doctor. We need to get a second opinion. We need to fight this. There's no fighting it, he said calmly. It's too advanced. It's in my bones now. In my brain. It's over, Laura. I've accepted that. But I haven't, I sobbed, not caring who saw me crying. Victor, you've become so important to me. I can't just lose you. Not now. Not when I finally feel like I'm healing. He reached out and took my hand, held it firmly. That's exactly when I need to go. You're healing, Laura. You're strong again. You don't need me anymore. And that was always the goal. To get you to a place where you could stand on your own. Where you didn't need a guardian. Where you could face the world without fear. I'll always need you, I whispered through my tears. No, you won't, he said with absolute certainty. You'll miss me, you'll remember me fondly, I hope. But you won't need me. And that's exactly how it should be. We sat there for a long time, holding hands, not speaking. What was there to say? Life was cruel and unfair. And just when you found someone who made it a little more bearable, they were taken away. Victor died 6 weeks later. Not 3 months, 6 weeks. In the end, the cancer moved fast. Aggressive and merciless. I was with him at the end, in the small room he rented in a hospice facility he had prearranged and prepaid for. He died quietly, peacefully, his hand in mine, a slight smile on his face. Thank you, he whispered with his last breath. For letting me matter, for giving my last month's purpose. Thank you, I whispered back. For saving me when I didn't know I needed saving. He left me everything. His small house on the edge of town. His savings, more than I would have expected. And a letter, written in a shaky hand on the day before he died. The letter explained everything. How he had been diagnosed the week before he met me. How he had been contemplating ending things on his own terms rather than wasting away slowly. How finding me that night at the bar, seeing someone else in pain, had given him something to live for in those final months. How protecting me, guiding me, Being my guardian had been a gift, not a burden. You gave me purpose when I had none. The letter read, "You let me be a good man in the end, even though I was far from good for most of my life. You were my redemption, Laura. My chance to balance the scales for all the darkness I had caused. I hope you can forgive the methods I used. I hope you can understand that everything I did came from a place of love. Not romantic love, but something deeper. The love of a protector for someone worth protecting. Live well, love carefully, trust wisely, and remember that some people who enter our lives for a short time can change us forever. You changed me. I hope I changed you too. With all my gratitude, Victor." I cried for days after he died. Cried for the friend I had lost. Cried for the time we didn't get to have. Cried for the unfairness of finding someone who understood me so completely only to lose them so quickly. But I also felt grateful. Grateful that he had been there when I needed him most. Grateful for his protection, his wisdom, his unwavering support. Grateful that in the darkest time of my life, a stranger had become a guardian angel. It's been 2 years now since Victor died. 2 years since that night Daniel called terrified, begging me to call off my boyfriend. I still think about Victor every day. Still visit his grave every month. Still live in the house he left me, surrounded by the few possessions of his I kept. I never did see Daniel or Carla again. I heard eventually that Daniel got married to someone else, had a child, moved on with his life. I heard Carla eventually returned to work, rebuilt her life, found some measure of peace. They stayed away just as Victor had ensured they would. And me, I healed. Slowly, painfully, but completely. I learned to trust again, though more carefully now. I learned that love doesn't mean being naive. That kindness doesn't mean being weak. That forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation, and sometimes the right choice is to simply walk away. I think about what Victor did, the fear he instilled in people who had hurt me, and I still struggle with the morality of it. Was he right? Was he wrong? I don't know. I may never know, but I know that his actions came from a place of genuine care. I know that he never asked for anything in return. I know that he gave me the space and protection I needed to heal. Maybe that's enough. Maybe in a world that often feels cruel and unjust, having someone willing to stand up for you, to protect you, to ensure you're safe, is enough. Maybe Victor's brand of rough justice isn't the answer the world needs, but it was the answer I needed in that moment. I still go to the lighthouse sometimes. Sit in our usual spot, order a whiskey, double, just like that first night. The bartender always pours one for Victor too, setting it on the empty stool next to me. A tribute to the man who protected a broken woman and found redemption in the process. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't walked into that bar that night. If I hadn't sat next to Victor. If he hadn't decided I was worth protecting, would I have healed eventually anyway? Probably. Would I have been as strong as I am now? I'm not sure. What I know is this. In my darkest hour, a stranger offered me kindness. And that kindness, twisted and complicated and morally ambiguous as it sometimes was, saved me. It gave me the breathing room I needed to put myself back together. It showed me that I was worth protecting, worth defending, worth caring about. Victor Castellanos was many things. A criminal. An enforcer. A man who had done terrible things in his life. But to me he was a guardian. A protector. A friend who asked for nothing and gave everything. And I miss him every single day. But I'm okay now. I'm strong. I'm whole. I'm exactly what he hoped I would become. And whenever I doubt myself, whenever I feel weak or scared or broken, I remember his last words to me. You're stronger than you think, Laura. You always have been. I just helped you see it. He was right. I am strong. Strong enough to have survived betrayal. Strong enough to have accepted complicated help from a complicated man. Strong enough to live with the gray areas of morality that most people prefer to ignore. Strong enough to honor his memory while understanding he was far from perfect. Strong enough to keep living, even after losing someone who had become so important to me. That's Victor's final gift to me. Not just the protection he offered when I was vulnerable. Not just the justice he delivered on my behalf, but the strength he helped me find within myself. The understanding that I could survive anything, that I was worth protecting, that I deserved better than what I had accepted. So to everyone listening to this story, Everyone who has been betrayed, everyone who has had their heart broken, everyone who has trusted the wrong people and paid the price, I want you to know this. You are stronger than you think. You deserve better than you got. And somewhere out there, in ways you might never see, in forms you might not recognize, there are people watching over you, hoping you heal, hoping you find your strength, hoping you become everything you're meant to be. Victor taught me that. In the strangest, most unexpected way possible, and I will be grateful for that lesson, and for him for the rest of my life. This is my story. The story of how my ex cheated on me, and a stranger in a bar became my guardian angel. The story of complicated morality and unconventional protection and finding strength in darkness. The story of Victor Castellanos, who spent his last months on earth making sure one broken woman had the chance to heal. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with me as I shared this piece of my life. And thank you, Victor, wherever you are, for everything. For seeing me when I felt invisible. For protecting me when I felt vulnerable. For believing I was worth saving when I wasn't sure I was. I hope I made you proud. I hope I became the person you believed I could be. I hope your last months had meaning and purpose and peace. Rest well, my guardian. Your work here is done, and I'm going to be just fine.